Hey, this is Chris with Phoenix Gaming. Today we're going to talk about Forge Fathers. This is our second episode in the Forge Fathers overview, and this is going to be discussing command units. Today we're going to look at the command units, their command orders, and as always, we're going to end this video with a tier list. Before we dig in, I'd like to talk some announcements. Once again, I am running or hosting a tournament in October. It's the day after the Michigan GT. That'll be in a town called Knox, Indiana. If you're interested, feel free to message me. I'm going to start putting out the tournament code here pretty soon so we can get everybody registered. I will be working on some videos that preview into my Universal Battle System. That's the game system I've been working on. It'll be a free rule set that will end up on my website, but the way it's going to end up there is by way of modules. And what I mean by modules is we're going to do different games that are based around the same mechanics. I'll most likely do some sort of 40K module for those of you that are like me who have a bunch of 40K units but don't really play anymore, as well as some original setting modules. So make sure you keep your eyes open for that. It is taking a bit longer than anticipated for me to get the Middle Earth video done, and that's mostly because I don't want to paint. I'm not going to lie to you. But it's not just that. It's also time, cameras, things like that. Just making sure everything is good. And once again, I did play a demo game of Conflict 47, the new edition. I'm going to be doing a review on that. I've got a couple other games I'm going to be diving into for some reviews so that we can start exploring some other games as well. So look forward to that. Last but not least, I'd like to give a big thank you to Military Gaming Command. Big shout out to them. They're a veteran-run nonprofit organization, and I truly appreciate the support that they give veterans through gaming. We are going to go through these in order as they appear. There might be one that's a little off because I got through the list and realized I had forgotten it and had to slam it back in. But up first is the Chief Broker, or Broker. I assume it's Broker. It's 50 points. Obviously, it has Designation Broker. It has Headstrong, Inspiring, Small Unit 3. It gives you a black command die and countercharge. Remember that designation is just a keyword. It only interacts with things that say they interact with it. It doesn't actually do anything by itself. It does assault on 4s with 2 AP2 seismic dice, so that's not too bad. The melee in this army is a little weird, but most of it is still pretty good. You can have up to 4 friends. They'll have a light forge hammer, which is 2 dice at AP1. And then the command order is Rugged Lifestyle to 12-inch aura, 1 command point, and all Designation Broker units gain Resilient 2 and Unflinching. And that's a solid order if you're going to be running multiple Broker units. Broker units are a little bit cheaper, but they also don't have heavy armor, so you're getting that trade-off. Resilient 2 is a nice way to shore up some of those differences in durability, and Unflinching could be handy, as this is one of the more melee-centric units in your army. Up next is the Thorogrim Huskarl. Headstrong, heavy armor, and everything has Headstrong. Let's just get that out of the way. Heavy armor, Inspiring, Small Unit 3, Tactician, and it gives 2 black dice, and then countercharge. It assaults on 3s with a heavy forge hammer, and that's the same as the Chief Broker, so you've got the 2 AP2 seismic dice. And that's it. But you can have up to 4 Thorogrim, and I spelled that wrong, and that's okay. Thorogrim friends for 18 point each, and each one swings the same profile, so they're all going to have those heavy seismic hammers. Command order is Hammer Strike. All units without the vehicle keyword gain Frenzy 3, and that's a really good aura if you are doing a few more melee-centric units. You could take Storm Rage veterans and just give them hammers and pistols if you wanted to. That's probably not the best way to kind of point them out, but you could. Broker units could benefit from it. Thorogrim could benefit from it. So you have a few different units that could really benefit from this order. And if you intend on running those units, definitely worth bringing. Then you have the Steel Warrior Huskarl. Headstrong, heavy armor, Inspiring, small unit, Tactician, orange, suppressive fire. And remember that suppressive fire is using a blaze away action as a charge reaction instead of a shoot action. It's really just a Steel Warrior with an extra hit point and the option to take hammer, pistol, or rifle. So it's effectively just the Steel Warrior Sergeant with an extra hit point. And then, obviously, you get the orange command die. And the orange command dice are nice to have in this army because they are kind of command point hungry. You can take more Steel Warriors as friends, and I don't think that's a bad thing to do because their rifle is pretty solid and it interacts with quite a few different orders. His command order is Precision Optics, and that's a 12-inch aura. All units gain controlled fire and marksman keywords, and that's a great order. It gives you a lot of efficiency. My only real gripe about it is that it can kind of slow you down as you try to use Overwatch to maximize your ability to take advantage of it. But we'll dig into that when we do the tier list. Then we have the Master Artificer, a headstrong, inspiring, resilient 2 tactician for 2 black, controlled fire, countercharge. It does shoot on 5s, it assaults on 4s, but controlled fire countercharge is actually kind of interesting because that's a very high volume unit, especially if you bring friends. The Artificer gets 4 dice and it has Blaze Away. The friends get 2 dice. My only real complaint here is that they're pistols, so it's 12-inch range. But your shooting is actually pretty high volume. And then the Artificer gets 3 dice at AP 1 in melee, and he has Frenzy 1. And his friends get 2 dice, and then there's a 5-point upgrade you can take on the Artificer himself to get a single seismic attack in melee. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid unit. It's got a good amount of volume, so it's going to be really good at clearing out maybe some stalkers, scarecrows, things like that, just because of the amount of dice it can throw. Its command order, Makeshift Defenses, is a 12-inch aura for 2 command points, and all non-vehicle units reduce the AP of all ranged and assault weapons, targeting it by 1 to a minimum of AP 0. That's an awesome order. And with the amount of heavy armor you have in this army, the fact that you can also reduce AP is going to make that heavy armor feel even better. And it's going to cut down the efficiency of certain units that are just going to be rough. Teratons are a rough matchup for Forge Fathers, especially infantry heavy Forge Fathers, because teleport shuts off your charge reactions. AP1 anti-tank gets you in that sweet spot where they got a 50-50 die roll just to damage you, and they will do work against Forge Father's infantry. But being able to reduce that AP1 to AP0, it's not a huge bump, but it's no longer a 50-50 die roll, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually is. And I know the math is the same, but it's kind of like, you know, the way I explain it to people is like the shift from 4 up to 5 up feels more punishing than the shift from 3 up to 4 up on a D6. And it's because you're no longer at that 50% mark. You're going less than 50%. Then you have the Forge Guard Husk. It's headstrong, heavy armor, inspiring, tactician orange, controlled fire. Shoots on 4s, assaults on 3s, 3 hit points, armor 7, heavy armor. This thing's probably got one of the best stat lines you're going to find in the army as far as infantry go. And it's 2 dice AP1 trademark Blaze Away range weapon because it's just a 2-die version of the Steel Warrior rifle. So it's, again, good volume. And you have that order where your trademark weapons can gain 1 additional die. So you also have that up your sleeve. And then 3 dice AP1 in melee. And he gets Forge Guard friends. And they have the same exact loadout. They've got a lot of durability. They only have 2 hit points instead of 3. But overall, him with a couple of friends would be a pretty difficult unit to shift without some dedicated anti-tank. All units without the vehicle keyword gain the regeneration keyword until the end of the round. That is a massive bump in durability. Being able to heal or even bring a model back for 2 command points, being able to do it to multiple units, that's incredible. And we're going to talk about why that's such a good order when we do our tier list. Then we have the Karfi Command Tank. It is headstrong, heavy armor, shield 3, shield generator, tactician orange, tracked, vehicle, very inspiring, controlled fire. It shoots 4 dice at AP1, Blaze Away, and trademark. Solid volume for a weapon that hits on 4's base. And for 20 points, you can get the Dozer Blade, takes it from armor 7 to armor 8, and then it gets its special Dozer Blade melee profile. Heavy armor and shield 3, it can be kind of a pain in the ass to get rid of this thing. Again, you're going to need to line up your shots. You're going to need to really make sure you're paying attention to how you're setting things up if you try to get rid of it. I will say this, it's command order battle maneuvers. All vehicle units within 12 inches, add 3 inches to any advance or sprint action it performs. I think this isn't a bad order, but I think it leans too much into a vehicle-heavy list, and I don't know what most dwarf players play. And I don't really, to be fair, know what most players play. I don't really read lists. I don't really pay attention to that. I didn't really keep up with that when I played 40K a lot. I just kind of focused on what I could control, right? I control what I can control, and that's what I put on the table. So I don't know if a lot of dwarf players play vehicle-heavy lists. The couple times I've played against them at tournaments, they've had at least 2 vehicles in their list at 1,250 points, which that's not bad, but it also depends on what your point sync is. The battle tank, what is it? The Stern Hammer's base, I think, 140 points. So that's over 10% of your army in a single unit. So if you have 2 of those, because I did play against a player that had 2 of those, we now have 20% of your army tied up in 2 units. And that, to me, just kind of... And they can't control objectives, and that's a lot. And then you would also need this command tank if you wanted to give them that same order. So now you're talking about 3 different vehicles, and you're talking about, what, 4 to 500 points, almost a third to a fourth of your list is just sunk into vehicles, things that can't hold objectives. And so it gets kind of weird. And I don't think dwarves shine with vehicle-heavy lists. That's where I was going with this. I think there's better ways to play them, and that's probably just coming from my background and my experience. Last, we have the Forge Lord. He's 110 points, and he's really just a Forge Guard Huskarl with countercharge and controlled fire, an extra hit point, and then a green tactician die. Gets the same Forge Guard friends. His command order, the Star Realm Endures. All units without the vehicle keyword count as being in cover for shoot and steady aim actions that target them. Again, another really solid order that helps improve survivability and does allow for a little bit more freedom of movement in your units. You don't have to hug terrain quite so much if you have that order active, if you're trying to avoid getting shot off the table, things like that. So keep that in mind. I think that's a pretty solid order that has its place. Before we dig into the tier list, I'd like to remind everybody I have a merch store, t-shirts and more. You can see the If You Can't Roll Hot, Roll Lots shirt on the screen. And then I also got the new Vrooman t-shirt up. So if you want to support the channel, feel free to click on the link in the description to the Fourth Wall store. And, whatever merch you like in there, feel free to buy it. I'm not going to twist your arm, but I'm also not going to hold you back. Now, we are going to get into the tier list. This is what everybody likes. And I, again, just want to start by saying this is slanted towards my play style and how I think the game should be played. And I don't mean that in a, you should play it this way, but with the perspective of it's a points game and you got to score points. And if you're not scoring points, you're not winning. You might not have that same mentality. You might not have that same play style. We might not agree. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments, and maybe you see something that I don't, and I can use this as an opportunity to learn. As always, I'm going to start with the worst and end with the best, and just a quick reminder, the worst doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means maybe it's very restrictive in how you want to build your lists. Maybe it only influences 1 or 2 units, things like that. So just keep that in mind. In last place, we have the Karfi Command Tank. And it's not that the command tank is bad. It fills a role within the army, but for 110 points and a restrictive command order that only affects vehicles, it just doesn't seem like it's really worth bringing to me. You have to bring vehicles to kind of maximize its order, unless you're just going to use its order on itself. And I don't think it's really worth it on itself. I think Juggernauts or the other Dreadnought-looking dudes are probably a better use for that, just because of their shooting and melee, their combo profiles. And it does kind of promote vehicle-heavy list building, and I just don't think that's where dwarves are. I think dwarves shine with infantry-heavy lists. They have some of the most rugged and durable infantry in the game, and multiple ways to buff their durability. So I think you're better off leaning into that side of it with maybe 1 or 2 vehicles to support them. I think I think Steel Warriors are phenomenal, and you could actually probably run almost pure Steel Warriors and have a very competitive list just because of how durable they can be, especially once you start getting some of these command orders and stuff going. In 6th place, evidently I forgot to type that, but it's the Thorgrim Huskarl. So in 6th place, evidently words are hard right now. Objectively, I have to look at it and I have to say the Huskarl, the Thorgrim Huskarl. I like the Thorgrim Huskarl. I run one frequently. It's not in my league list that I'm running right now, but it has been in every other game I've played. And I think it's phenomenal. I think it's a very solid unit, and it's really good if it's supported by 1 or 2 other units of either Thorgrim or Brokers or some other melee-centric unit. But I also recognize that that might not be how a lot of people play. I don't know. But I do love Thorgrim, and I love the Thorgrim Huskarl. I think they're great units, and I think that they have a very good role in a good, well-built dwarf list. But I would assume, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but I would assume a lot of players look at Thorgrim as a bonus rather than a staple. If I were building a 1,250-point list right now, there's a good chance I would have 2 units of Steel Warriors and then a unit of Thorgrim, and then probably 1 Thorgrim Huskarl. And then maybe a Steel Warriors Huskarl or a Forge Guard Huskarl, something along those lines. Like, that is probably going to be the staple of what I run. But I could definitely see other players not doing that. Again, because I know my play style. And so far, out of all the tournaments I've been to, there's not a lot of people who play this game the way I do. And that doesn't make me better or worse. I just mean I tend to have a very Drukhari-based, Orc-based play style where it's kind of aggressive and a lot of push, and applying pressure. And so far in my experience, outside of my local play group, a lot of players like to do the sit and shoot. So I would assume, based off of that experience, that Thorgrim for a lot of players, like I said, they're the dessert. They're not the main course. I want to rank them higher, but I do understand how restrictive they could be because of their frenzy only affecting non-vehicle units and, needing semi-efficient melee units for it to really take effect. In 5th place, I have the Chief Broker, and honestly, it's not a bad unit. It's actually a pretty darn good one. It brings decent melee, trademark pistols, high volume, lot of positives here. It's really cheap, and it still brings you a black command die. Its order is really good, but it is only restricted to broker units. And broker units don't have heavy armor. And that's not bad. But when you have all these other options that have heavy armor built in, instead of having to rely on an order for durability, they just have it. I can take brokers and then I can give them resilient too, but I could also just take Steel Warriors and the points don't even up, and I understand that. But I can just take Steel Warriors who are armor 6 with heavy armor, and then I can find ways to improve their durability even more. So when I'm looking at dwarves, I'm looking at how do I make the most rugged and durable army I can for as cheap as I can. And the broker and the chief broker just don't fit into that. That doesn't mean I would never play them. But based on how I'm playing the dwarves right now, they don't fit into the lists that I'm building. In 4th place, I have the Steel Warrior Huskarl. And honestly, I think the Steel Warrior Huskarl could be in 3rd. I think you could make a strong case for it to be in 3rd. The orange command die is super helpful. Dwarves seem to be very command point hungry, as I've stated. Their command order is really good with a 12-inch aura of Marksman, which is reroll hit rolls and 1 for ranged, and control fire. This placement at 4th place is based kind of like how I had to tell you, Thorgrim Huskarl. I would personally put it higher, but I'm recognizing that that's probably not the best way to play them. With the Steel Warrior Huskarl, I'm putting it this low kind of for the same reason. Because I don't like to play sit and shoot. And so I tend to want to move and move and move. And so this order slows down my play style. And it's not that it's bad, but it gets me outside of my comfort zone. and it makes it a little bit harder for me to play the game the way I want to play it. You know, I'm trying to overwatch a bit more often in order to take advantage of that controlled fire, but what that means is I'm either moving or shooting when I activate units and not both. And that could be a problem. And that does slow me down and keeps me from moving and playing my game. But I could, honestly, a good argument could be made for the Steel Warrior Huskarl to be in third or second. In third place, I put the Forge Lord. That is the restricted by one named character Forge Lord. And I think it's a great unit. The mobile cover platform is very useful. 2 command points, though, for cover, to me, is expensive when you can just get it for free by having good positioning. That doesn't mean you're always going to have good positioning, and that doesn't mean you can't ever benefit from this order. But I would rather get my cover from the terrain and, again, find other ways to improve my durability. What I will say about the Forge Lord is that if you're a newer player, the versatility and freedom of movement it can provide can take pressure off of you, because you're not having to worry about making sure you've got your models in the right places often to make sure you have cover, things like that. So it can be beneficial, and even more experienced players can use it and benefit from it. Maybe there's an objective out in the open and you want to sit on it and make sure you don't just get shot off the table. Again, it has a use. It's very versatile. It affects all your infantry. I believe it's all non-vehicles. But to me, there's better ways to improve your durability with this army for less points, and we're going to get into it. In second place, I will tell you that I think second place is a toss-up between the Artificer and the Forge Guard Huskarl. I think the Forge Guard Huskarl slightly edges the Master Artificer out, simply due to its stat line. The stat line is fantastic. It's got more hit points, it's got better armor, etc., etc. But I will tell you that the Master Artificer's order is really good. Reducing incoming AP by 1 for ranged and assault attacks is phenomenal, especially with so much armor 6 and heavy armor in the army. And again, using the example, Teratons go from killing dwarves on a 5-up to a 6-up. And because those Teratons are able to shut off your charge reactions, that's going to limit your ability to win the assault. So what you're doing is trying to restrict their ability to kill you. You also have things like your Terminators, the Forge Guard. They're armor 7. Armor 7 heavy armor, and now you can reduce incoming AP by 1 with 2 hit points. That is such a good order. The Master Artificer's kind of cheap, 2 black command dice. The Commander and Friends have an insane amount of volume of dice for both melee and shooting, and can blaze away. So you have options with what you want to do with them. Overall, I think the Master Artificer is a phenomenal command unit. But I think the winner chicken dinner goes to the Forge Guard Huskarl. This is not the restricted named character, but this is the regular one. It's armor 7. You get your armor 7 friends. You do have a short range aura. It's only 6 inches. But because of when this aura is triggered, you are able to use other auras throughout the turn with it. Remember, when you have overlapping auras, whenever you would be allowed to use one is when you choose which one to use. And I did discuss this ad nauseum in my Rules Committee Q&A. I'm going to put a link in the description to that video. But keep that in mind. If you've got 2 or 3 different auras on the table, you can benefit from all 3 of them throughout the course of a turn, depending on when they are triggered. So just keep that in mind. Even just the command unit gaining regenerate makes the command unit incredibly tough to shift for a lot of armies. Orange command die, really good. Again, like I said, the dwarves seem to be very command point hungry. They get great volume with their 2-die hailstorm rifle and 3-die hammers. And then overall, I couldn't make a list that wouldn't benefit from having this unit. Because even if you went very vehicle heavy, it could still give you regenerate on whatever infantry you brought. So overall, I just think its versatility, its increase in durability, the way you can kind of stack that with other auras that might be on the table. Again, remember, you can't get them all at the same time. But because they trigger at different times, you can benefit from them. So, just keep all that in mind. That's why, to me, Forge Guard Husk, a number 1. Again, if you disagree, I wouldn't mind hearing what your tier list would look like. Put that in the comments. Also, if you've been enjoying these videos and you haven't subscribed, I'm going to need you to do that. Or I'm going to have to get, I'm going to have to get my friends out there to your house. And they're going to make an offer that you can't refuse. And obviously, I'm not serious. But honestly, if you like it, subscribe. Subscribing and watching the videos is really the only support I ever ask for. Just because that's what gets me paid, and that's what keeps me doing this. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. Thank you to my Patreon and Fourth Wall supporters, Lord Wellingstone and Dan the Man. And I hope everybody enjoyed this episode of Forge Fathers. Thank you.